let's start off with a verse.
Hallelujah.
Let's do John 3:11, and it says, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness. If I have told you earthly things, and ye believe not, how shall ye believe if I tell you heavenly things?" In verse 29 through 34, he that hath the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom withstandeth and heareth him, rejoiceth greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. This my joy, therefore, is fulfilled. He must increase, but I must decrease. He that cometh from above is above all. He that is of the earth is earthly, and speaketh of the earth. He that cometh from Shamayim is above all. And what he hath seen and heard, that he testifieth. And no man receiveth his testimony. He that hath received his testimony hath set to his seal that Elohim is true. For he whom Elohim hath sent speaketh the words of Elohim. For Elohim giveth not the Spirit or the Ruach by measure unto him. Let's also read Romans 3:1 and 2. And we read this last week. What advantage then hath the Yahudim? Or what profit is there of circumcision? Much, every way. Chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of Elohim. In the previous study, I laid out some of the evidence showing that Shaul was sent to the isles of the Gentiles, or unto the Grecians, to proclaim the good news. I also proclaimed that news is only good to a person if that person has an expectation or anticipation of its report. To everyone else, it is just information. Being that we currently live in an age of information, all of us on this call should know and understand that information placed in the wrong hands can be manipulated and twisted to suit one's agenda and or needs. This verse here in Romans, we see that by Elohim to the Yahudim were the oracles of Elohim committed. Let's look at 2nd Esdras chapter 6, and we are going to do 7 through 9. It says, "Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Yitzhak, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth." Many are called, but few are chosen. Let's look at Matthew 7:14 and 15. It says, "Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." Speaking of few, do you all remember the passage from last week about Rabbi Shaul and Paphos? And this is a side note. I ask because many people will tell you that Shaul's name means little, small, or few. Now, Shaul gets his name from King Shaul, who definitely was not little or small. He gets his name from Shaul of Rehoboth. And in ancient cultures, not just Hebrew, but especially in Hebrew, names mean something. They speak of one's character or reputation. Now, if we look at 1 Samuel 9 and verse 2, and if you look at the top right box, we can see that Shaul, according to the Strong's, means asked for. And if we look at the root of that word, which is sha'al, we can see it means inquire, to request, or to demand. Now, to me, this makes sense and reflects his character. King Shaul was the king that the people asked for or demanded. And also, King Shaul went to inquire of the medium at Endor. But the way my brain works, I am wondering if the Greeks actually tried to diminish Rabbi Shaul's name, his character, and his impact based on an event that we glossed over last week. Let's take a look at Acts 13, and we're going to do verses 6 through 12. And it says, when they had gone through the isle unto Paphos, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet, a Yahudi, whose name was Bar Yahusha. Now, Bar Yahusha means son of Yahusha, which he, Bar Yahusha, was with the deputy of the county or the country, Sergius Paulus, a prudent man who called for Barnabas and Shaul and desired to hear a word of Elohim. Now, prudent means to be wise or cautious. And this deputy, Sergius Paulus, is interesting because Paulus, it actually does mean little and or small or few. Sergius in Latin means protector of or servant of. So Sergius Paulus means he's a protector or a servant of a few. And he called for Barnabas and Shaul and desired to hear a word of Elohim. But Elymas the sorcerer, for so is his name by interpretation, withstood them, seeking to turn away the deputy, this is Sergius Paulus, from the faith. Now, Elymas means El's rejected or rejected of El. And, you know, this Elymas is the same Bar Yahusha that we see in verse 6. So to me, him turning the deputy away from the faith, if I had to picture it, knowing that he's a Yahudim, to me it would look like, hey, look, I was there when all of this happened, and it's not quite like you think. Besides, I'm the son of Yahusha. And we all know the text never says that Yahusha had a son, just imagining in my mind. Verse 9, then Shaul, who is called Paul, and that's where I pause. So we understand the name of Sergius Paulus means servant or protector of a few. We understand Elymas is trying to turn him away from the faith. And then all of a sudden you're told that Shaul is also called Paul. So are the Greeks trying to tell us that what Shaul did was little? Or it only affected a few? Or it was just a small thing? Anyway, that's how my brain works. Shaul, filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, set his eyes on him. and said, O full of all subtlety and all mischief, thou child of the adversary or devil, thou enemy of all righteousness, will thou not cease to pervert the right ways of Yahuah? Now, just to let you know, for those who do not know, this phrase right here that I have highlighted in Hebrew, it's actually just one word. That word is Yasharel, the right or straight way or path to Elohim. So this should read, will thou not cease to pervert Yasharel? And it makes sense, being that he's a Yahudi. But I continue. And now behold, the hand of Yahuah is upon thee, and thou shalt be blind, not seeing the sun for a season. And immediately there fell on him a mist and a darkness, and he went about seeking some to lead him by the hand. Then the deputy, when he saw what was done, believed, being astonished, and that word is ekplesos, it means to be amazed. If you look behind it, it also means to pound or inflict with, which is another way of saying he was pricked at the heart. But he believed, being amazed or pricked at the heart, at the doctrine of Yahuah. Yashar, or straight is the way, and beware of false prophets. A warning and a disclaimer. What I'm about to say, I have a saying for. And it is, once you know, you cannot unknow. What it means is, once you have heard and understand, you will be held accountable for what you now know. So if you would like to not be held accountable for what I'm about to say, you may want to turn your volume down for a few minutes. Now, I mentioned the importance of names and them having meanings. God, as commonly used by the world, is neither the name of nor the title of Elohim. God, as it is pronounced, is a Hebrew word, and it means fortune or money, and in some instances, a troop. Now, Moshe is told early on in the Exodus account that the name of Elohim is Yahuah, as pronounced in the most ancient tongue. The name Yahuah appears in the Bible close to 7,000 times. God is neither a translation nor is it a transliteration of the name Yahuah. To use the term God when you have the knowledge of what his true name is not a light thing. You can't just say, well, he, or you know what I mean, or I am just saying it to relate to people who don't understand. If that is the case, use the term the Most High, or Elohim. Last time I checked, almost all people understand that. To continue using that word that means money or fortune when you know the true name is at that point blatant disrespect and disobedience. Choose this day whom you will serve. Let's look at Matthew 6:24. It says, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve money and wealth. If that doesn't make sense to you, I'm here to let you know that these two are the exact same thing. So you can see that there's a deception going on here. Elohim means fortune, and mammon, mammonos, means avarice or wealth. What's funny is there's a rabbi named Maimonides who a lot of Judaism gets their ways and understanding from. And his name means money as well. That's just an interesting side note. What this should read, no man can serve two masters, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve Elohim and God. That's what it's supposed to read. Anyway, let's look at Genesis 25:23. And Yahuah said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Yahuah is telling Rebekah here what the order of things shall be. The elder shall serve the younger. This is a future prophecy which is yet to come till its full fruition. This also flies in the face of those who believe that it is the right of the firstborn to automatically inherit the birthright. In fact, if you think of Seth, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, and Joseph via Ephraim, you will notice that none of them were the firstborn. Now, Jacob's name and reputation is unfortunately tied to a misunderstanding, no matter how one tends to understand it. Let's look at Genesis 27:36. And he said, is not he rightly named Yaakov? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? To supplant, it's not the true understanding of the name of Jacob or Yaakov. At its core, Jacob means heel, right? Here it says heel catcher, but you can get the root here, akab or akob, it means a heel, as in the rear or coming at the rear. Remember Esdras in 2nd Esdras 6:8, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand first held the heel of Esau. And he explains why in verse 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth it. Jacob clutching Esau's heel is the physical display of the spiritual understanding of what we read in Esdras. Now, pay close attention, because when Yitzhak or Isaac's memory serves him correctly, he utters something that is truly prophetic. He says, Yitzhak answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy master, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? Did you see it? Did Jacob and Esau have other brethren? Or was Yitzhak uttering something that would come to pass for something or someone in him, Jacob that is, and what will be? All his brethren have I given him for servants. Tonight, we will be going through Exodus 28, and I'm going to read verse 1. It says, and take unto thee Aharon thy brother, and his sons with him from among the children of Yasharel, that he may minister unto me in the priest office, even Aharon, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, Aharon's sons. Moshe is being told that he is to take Aharon and his sons from among the children of Yasharel. This is significant if you understand that they also have a mixed multitude with them at this time as well. So the instruction for Moshe to take them from among the children of Yasharel, it has meaning. The purpose is so that he, Aharon, and they, his sons, may minister unto Yahuah in the priest office. Now, minister is the Hebrew word kahan, and it is a verb. It is not the source of the title Cohen, from which we get Kohanim, or those acting or officiating as a priest. That would actually be the next strong entry. Cohen. You can see here that this is a noun signifying its role as a title. So, what is the action of Kahan or a minister? For that, let us look to what Messiah had to say. Let's look at Matthew 20, 25 through 27. It says, "But Yahusha called unto him and said, Ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant." Yahusha is speaking here to the sons of Zebedee, and this is after they have encouraged their mother to approach Yahusha and request that they be allowed to sit on his right and left hand in the kingdom. Now, oftentimes, I wish I had the wisdom and the tact that Yahusha uses here, and that he does not outright tell them that they are totally wrong and have an incorrect picture of the kingdom, but he instead uses an illustration of ministering to give them a more correct picture. I believe in their minds, what they are seeing is probably something close to this. Now, that was a picture of a pagan heathen throne, more specifically a British throne set up to show the line of succession. The seat that was to the right of the main throne would be the first, and the seat to the left would be the second in the line of succession. Yahusha explains to them that the chiefs of the heathen, that word for princes there is archon, and it means first, they operate like this. The word for Gentiles here is ethnos, and it means race, tribe, foreigner, pagan, or heathen. Now, notice how Yahusha defines certain words used within the verse itself. Dominion here, it means authority. And princes, which is archon or chief, it means great. He continues this pattern with the explanation of what the action of a minister is. It is a servant, or service, or serve. So, if we employ this understanding to verse 28, it would read, "Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." In our day and time, there are many that take to themselves, or have been ordained by man, to be ministers. In those instances, minister is employed as a title, and oftentimes their actions don't measure out to what Yah has ordained. The same goes for pastors, in which its title means shepherd, but the action is to serve or tend to the flock. For one, Yah instructed Moshe to choose men, Aharon and his sons, from among the tribe or the children of Yisrael. More specifically, as we will discover in future studies, from the tribe of Levi. And we know nowadays that not all Israel is Israel. And this is because the reckoning of true Israel is not based on your title as Israel, it's based on your actions as Israel. Law-abiding, yasharel, and upright or straight path to Elohim. Just as a minister should not be ordained as such based on his title, but based on his actions. And as we can see, he must be first and foremost reckoned as an Israelite, or one who follows the totality of the law. A priest or Cohen's job is to lead by example. They are a servant of and or serve at the behest of Elohim. Now, behest means a command or an authoritative order. In doing so, following the commands of Elohim, they perform the duties of offering sacrifices, first for, in, and of themselves. That is key. And then in addition, for the children of Yasharel, the flock, also key. This is done for the remission or forgiveness of sins. To operate as a nation of priests, Yasharel, this is a necessary component, as Elohim and his laws are just. To serve, minister, or mediate within them. One at all times must remain above board, if you would, free of blemish, to perform the necessary duties of the law. Now, all things point to Messiah, and even this verse the verse we're studying in Exodus, and its understanding, it's a pointing to Messiah. Let's look at Hebrews 8, 1 through 6. It says, now of the things which we have spoken, this is the sum, or the totality of the matter. We have such an high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty. That word is truly, should be Elohim or Yahuah there. It means greatness or divinity. In the Shamayim, a minister or servant of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle, which Yahuah pitched and not man. Now, if you don't know what the true tabernacle is, that Yahuah pitched and not man, it's actually you. For every high priest is ordained to offer gifts and sacrifice. Wherefore, it is of necessity that this man have somewhat also to offer. For if he were on earth, he should not be a priest, seeing that there are priests that offer gifts according to the law, who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moshe was admonished of Elohim when he was about to make the tabernacle. For, see, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern shewed to thee in the mount. Because the true tabernacle is you, this verse mentioning for Moshe to make all things according to the pattern shewed to thee in the mount means that Moshe wasn't just shown a physical thing, but now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. A question arose in a previous study that I was a part of concerning the understanding of the title Son of Man. Now, this might be a bit heavy, so listen as closely as you can. Let's deal with the son portion of Son of Man. A son is an heir to his father. This means that he serves the will of his father, both in appearance and in his actions. What is ironic is that his appearance as a son is only recognizable if his actions are in line with the father's will. This is why birthrights did not pass to Cain, Ishmael, Esau, etc. They go hand in hand, the appearance and actions, that is. The word man is exclusively tied to the Father's will, his command, and his promise for that heir. Remember, Yasharel also was once called a son. Whenever you see the term Son of Man deployed in the text, the word being used there for man is Adam, as in the first man. Now, a promise, it's always conditional, and by default is always tied to a command, will, or instruction. In fact, the fulfillment of a promise, again by default, in turn becomes part of the will of the one issuing the promise. So I ask, what was the first promise given to Adam? Let's look at Genesis 2:16 and 17. It says, and Yahuah commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Who was the father of Adam or man? Elohim. And what is his will or the promise as seen here? Death. Let's look at Hebrews 9:27. And it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this is the judgment. Now, I'm sure that someone out there is probably thinking of a comeback verse. So let's just go ahead and look at it. Let's look at 2 Peter 3:9. And it says, Yahuah is not slack concerning his promise. Remember, that was death. As some men count slackness, but is long-suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. So we already understand that the promise from Genesis is death. And when you read this being slack mentioned here, I attribute akin to one's understanding of Yahuah telling Adam in Genesis, the day ye eat thereof, ye shall surely die. The key here is understanding the word perish. And you should know that the day you die is not the day you perish. Two different events and two different times. And also our mind's understanding of perishing as a full destruction of a thing. But technically, in Hebrew understanding, it is the time when you have officially lost the race. Now, Son of Man also has an additional understanding, and I will try and tie it all together for you in a second. But Yahusha and Yasharel, for that matter, were also called the son or sons of Elohim. So we know that a son is an heir. So what does that mean? Let's look at John 6:39 and 40. It says, "And this is the Father's will which hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life. And I will raise him up at the last day." Verses 47 through 51, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me have everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from Shamayim, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread which came down from Shamayim. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world." Yahusha explains how to obtain eternal life and a little bit more about the Father's will. And if you have been in the previous studies, specifically the pure oil olive, verse 53 ties it all together. "Verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life in you." Remember Exodus 27:20, "Thou shalt command the children of Yasharel that they bring the pure oil olive beaten for the light," that's you, "to cause the lamp," that's the light inside you, "to burn always." Remember, oil here was shaman or shaman. And Hebraically, it meant consume the blood of the seed. Now, Isaiah 53:10 and 11, it explains it best. "Yet it pleased Yahuah to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of Yahuah shall prosper in his hand. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities." Yahusha being called the son of Elohim means that he, as he explained many times in the Brit Hadashah, does the will of Elohim. The will of Elohim is summed up in what we just read in Isaiah, in Exodus, and in John, in what you see in other passages, that he offer his life for the sins of many, the sins of Adam. Yahusha being called the Son of Man means that he also serves at the behest of, remember that word? Man also. The promise to man is tied to Yahuwah's will for man, and that is appointed to all men to die once and then face judgment. Yahusha accomplished this as well, but unlike Adam, Yahusha was able to defeat death and become the first fruit of the resurrection and the promise of eternal life, because he was pure, without blemish, without sin, thus accomplishing his sonship to the Father and his servitude or sonship to Adam. Here's the catch and what it means to you, and ties in to what we are looking at this evening. Let's look at Exodus 4, 21 through 23, it says, And Yahuwah said unto Moshe, When thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, Thus saith Yahuwah, Yasharel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. If you reckon yourself as Yasharel and are doing the will of the Father, you are also considered a son of Elohim and a son of man. And you must know, what is good for the master is good for the servant. Let's look at Mark 8, 34 through 35. It says, And when he had called the people unto him with his Talmudim, or disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stake and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the basar, the good news, the same shall save it. And what Yahusha is saying in this passage in Mark is Romans 12, 1 and 2. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Elohim, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, offering, holy or kadesh, acceptable unto Yahuwah, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim. Quick side note, sort of, before we continue on in Exodus 28. You ever notice that no one in the Old Testament was promised eternal life? I want you to hold on to that for a second. Those today who are Torah only are indeed the sons of man. Thus, they are servants to the promise of death. There is no hope of eternal life for them. Yahusha was a son of Elohim, thus made in the image of Elohim, and displayed this by his appearance and his service. Those today who are New Testament only, they are dependent upon the service of Messiah only. Their hope rests in the misapplied understanding of grace and faith. They do not the law, nor the will of the Father. Thus, they do not exude or appear or reflect his image. At the judgment, they will be deemed unrecognizable by Messiah. Eternal life is not an option for them either. You must have both the law and the testimony of Messiah, son of Elohim and son of man. You must find, see, and understand Messiah and the Father's will. Now, eternal life for those in the Old Testament, I ask you to hold on to that for a second. Noah was given understanding of what it takes by Yahuwah telling and showing him that he will bring a remnant of you into the house to be saved or redeemed. Abraham was giving understanding through many examples, Mount Moriah, and a glimpse of the end, the glimpse of the end. Your seed shall be strangers, but I will judge that nation and bring them out. But you shall go to your fathers in peace and shall be buried in a good old age. No promise of eternal life there. But Yahusha confirms that Abraham understood the plan when he said, Abraham rejoiced to see my day and was glad. We read earlier of Yitzhak or Isaac telling Esau, I have made your brother master over you. Yaakov told his sons, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh, which is an epithet for Messiah, come. Cannot get much plainer than that. And Moshe, as we saw, was shown the pattern, the order of things in the mount. In all of those instances, we can see by their actions, appearance, and utterance that they understood to some degree the Father's ultimate will, and that redemption would come. Now, the remainder of Exodus 28, I have touched on in several other studies, so we are not going to read through it in its entirety tonight. That being said, we are going to hit some points, but it would be my suggestion that you read it for yourself at your leisure. Now, this portion of the Exodus account is the instructions to Moshe. So we will indeed see these things mentioned again during the actual application process. And what it covers is the appearance of the priest to include the high priest as well. In verse 4, Yahuah instructs Moshe to make for Aharon and his sons garments, a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a broidered coat, a mitre or mitre, some say, bonnet for Aaron's sons, which is not seen here, and a girdle. Now, some may see the mentioning of these things as reminiscent of the armor of Elohim that we see in Ephesians 6, 11 through 17. But this armor that we see here or outfit, it's spiritual in nature and in its application. It is mentioned to be deployed at a specific time. The armor that you see here is actually a reiteration of a passage found in the Old Testament. It is Isaiah 59:17. For he put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation upon his head. And he put on the garments of vengeance for clothing and was clad with zeal as a cloak. This is mentioned here in the context of a future prophecy of Yahusha, the Redeemer, coming to Zion. Now, the ephod in our time, there we go. People tend to confuse the ephod with the breastplate in thinking it is the item that contains the 12 stones. The ephod is mentioned in verses 6 through 14 as simply a garment made of fine twined linen. It has two shoulder pieces, which have two ouches set in it in gold, and the two onyx stones with the names of the 12 tribes, 6 on one stone and 6 on the other, are set in the ouches of the shoulder pieces. And it may appear as you read this that ouches are like pockets or pouches in which the stones sit, but this is technically not the case. An ouch is a weave technique called brocade or brocading, in which normally silver or gold is interwoven with the main fabric to give it the appearance of being embroidered in. In the case of the ephod seen here in this chapter, the ouches would encompass the onyx stones on the shoulder pieces, setting them to appear almost like shoulder pads, if you would. Now, the curious girdle mentioned in the text is the equivalent of a belt or a strap. The breastplate, it is also made of fine twined linen and gold, and it contains an assortment of 12 precious stones set in 4 rows of 3 stones. These stones are also engraved with the names of the tribes of Yasharel, 1 name per stone. The breastplate, it also houses the Urim and the Tumim, and the way the text is worded in verse 30, it gives you the appearance that these were placed on the inside of the breastplate closest to the heart. There is also a woven robe that contained golden bells and pomegranates, and an embroidered coat made of fine twined linen, and of course, the mitri and bonnets. The instructions for the garments, they are extremely detailed and intricate in their fashion. And we probably could construct a lesson about the things in themselves. Their adornment is extremely similar to the instructions we covered for the tabernacle complex. And Yahuah does this for good reason. The priest and the tabernacle are to appear magnificent to onlookers so that they, the onlookers, recognize and realize that they, the priest, and it, the tabernacle, are set apart. They are holy. And this is not your typical tabernacle and or your typical priest. Their adornment and construction has been ordered and ordained by Yahuah himself. They are also a reminder to us as priests as well that we are the tabernacle of Yahuah and thus are also to be holy and to perform the actions, duties, and in our appearance to be set apart. A question was once posed to me and others asking if it is actually necessary to wear fringes and or tzitzits. The short answer is yes. And the instruction to wear them was given to Moshe by Yahuah to give to all the children of Yasharel after a man of Yasharel was caught transgressing the law by gathering sticks on the Shabbat. It can be found in Numbers 15:37 under the subheading, the law of fringes. And Yahuah spake unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Yasharel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the borders a ribbon of blue. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that ye may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of Yahuah, and do them, and that ye seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which ye use to go a-whoring, that ye may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy, kodesh, or set apart, unto your Elohim. I explained this a few months ago when I discovered it, and I'm going to touch on it again for anyone new in the room or whoever may not have heard it, and I will attempt to be as brief as possible. The discovery I had is centered around this ribbon of blue. In Exodus 24:10, The elders of Israel, they go up the mount with Moshe and report that they saw the Elohim of Yasharel, and there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of Shamayim in his clearness. Now, we all know that Yahuwah resides in heaven. So, under his feet would be heaven, which to us, when we look up, we are actually seeing the floor of heaven. And we are told here that it appeared as a paved work of sapphire stone. Now, sapphire stone is blue. And I asked the question in that previous lesson, what color is the ocean or seawater? Hoping that people would say blue. In actuality, it is clear, remember? It's just water. It only appears blue because it is actually reflecting the color of heaven. Now, paved work as seen in this verse, it has an extensive breakdown, but to keep it short, behind the meaning for work is Torah, or the commandments expressed as a transaction or a deed. Behind the meaning of paved is a path or pathway to purity or being deemed cleaned, expressed here as white, transparent, or clear. Together, the understanding is that the body of heaven is itself held together and constructed by Torah, and it being the clear pathway to righteousness. Righteousness being the deeds of Torah. And it is and appears to us in the shade of the color blue. Why? To remind us of the way and or the clear path to righteousness. When you read about the curtains and the veil of the tabernacle, you will notice that they both contain blue. And it is the same. Oh, there we go. It's the same for the instructions of the garments in Exodus 28 made for the priests. Since these are contained within the deeds or instruction that Yahuwah is giving to Moshe, and all of these instances begin with thou shalt or thou shall, means that it is mandatory. Remember, minister is a verb, and part of the definition is to perform the work and also to put on the regalia or the garments as Yahuwah has prescribed. Notice the mentionings of blue throughout Exodus 28. In verse 5, speaking of all the garments. In verse 6, the ephod. Verse 8, and the girdle. Verse 15, and the breastplate. Verse 28 says that the breastplate rings shall be binded to the rings of the ephod with a lace or ribbon of blue. Verse 31, the robe shall be all blue. Verse 33, the pomegranates under the hem of the robe has blue in it. And in verse 37, the mitri that is to be upon the high priest's forehead also has a lace or ribbon of blue. Now, maybe a few of you may believe that I might be reaching a bit, considering that these instances of blue in conjunction with the garments for the priest is often mentioned as being in array with scarlet, purple, gold, and precious stones as well. But I am telling you that there is something different about the blue, its meaning, and why it is mentioned so frequently. The mitri that is to be upon the forehead of the high priest. Notice in verse 36 that it also has a plate made of pure gold that contains a title written in all caps: holiness, or set apart to Yahuah. This identifies him as a minister, a servant to Yahuah. And again, this makes him recognizable to any onlooker as being set apart as a priest or servant of Yahuah. Revelation 17. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness, and of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. You do realize that these passages are about the false prophet, the false priest of the adversary. You do realize that this false priest has a title written in all caps upon her forehead. You do realize that this false priest is arrayed in purple, scarlet, decked with gold and precious stones, but did you realize what was missing? The blue. The thing that is supposed to remind you of the commandments and the clear pathway to righteousness.